Hi everyone. Today we're going to be discussing school accommodations for children with type 1 diabetes. Throughout the presentation, terms such as type 1 diabetes, T1D, or just simply diabetes might be used interchangeably. These are the objectives of this presentation, which I will let you view on your own time if desired. And this is what we'll be talking about today. So we will start with federal legislation that impacts school accommodations for students with disabilities. We'll then talk about some services that are available for students with disabilities, locally and nationally. And finally, we will go over the process of how to acquire school accommodations within Clark County School District. So let's first dive into the federal legislation that even makes it possible for disabled students to have rights and accommodations. Some of the following legislation is not necessarily related to school accommodations, but I think it's important that we acknowledge the work that has been done in the disabled rights movement, despite there still being a lot more work to be done. 1973 brought the Rehabilitation Act, which replaced the Vocational Rehabilitation Act. We'll talk more about this piece of legislation in the following slides, though. In 1982, the National Organization on Disability was formed as an advisory board within the Department of Education. Its purpose is to promote policies, programs, practices, and procedures that guarantee equal opportunity for all people with disabilities, regardless of the nature or severity of disability. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, was ratified in 1990. However, we're going to dive deeper into this piece of legislation as well in the following slides. Lastly, the Affordable Care Act of 2010 worked to not only expand the number of people in the US with health insurance, but also prohibited insurance companies from denying people coverage due to pre-existing conditions or disabilities, including diabetes. The ADA prohibits the discrimination of people with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. It gives civil rights protections to individuals with disabilities similar to those provided to individuals on the basis of race, sex, national origin, age, and religion. A person with a disability is defined as someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a history or record of such an impairment, such as a cancer that is currently in remission, or is perceived by others as having such an impairment, such as a person who has scars from a previous severe burn. There's a wide variety of disabilities, and the ADA regulations do not list all of them, despite providing services and protections for them. Disabilities directly listed in the ADA include, but are not limited to, cancer, HIV, cerebral palsy, deafness or hearing loss, blindness or low vision, major depressive disorder, and diabetes. Title II of the ADA contains specific requirements for state and local governments to ensure equal access to all services, programs, and activities for people with disabilities. This includes things like transportation, social services, voting, and public education. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs conducted by federal agencies, in programs receiving federal financial assistance, and in federal employment or the employment practices of federal contractors. Although federal funding for public schools plays a minor role, this funding supports programs that directly impact or influence public schools daily, including things like Title I, the Child Nutrition Act, and IDEA. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act is a federal law designed to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance from the U.S. Department of Education. Recipients of this federal financial assistance include public school districts, institutions of higher education, and other state and local education agencies. For type 1 diabetic students, Section 504 provides the formal accommodations plan that they would qualify for and that the parent would want to obtain prior to or at the start of an academic school year. Section 504 regulations require a school district to provide a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, to each qualified student with a disability within the school district's jurisdiction, regardless of the nature or severity of the disability. Under Section 504, FAPE consists of the provision of regular or special education and related aids and services designed to meet the student's individual educational needs as adequately as the needs of their non-disabled peers are being met. Protections of Section 504 extend only to individuals who meet the regulatory definition of a person with a disability, meaning if a recipient school district reevaluates a student in accordance with the Section 504 regulatory provisions and determines that the student's mental or physical impairment no longer substantially limits their ability to learn or any other major life activity, the student might no longer be eligible for services under Section 504. However, given that type 1 diabetes is a chronic disability, these students will always meet the definition of a person with a disability. Once a Section 504 plan has been set in place, regular education teachers must implement the provisions of the plan when those plans directly govern the teacher's treatment of students that they are responsible for. Failure to do so can cause a school district to be in noncompliance with Section 504. Section 504 requires districts to obtain parental permission for initial evaluations. School districts are also required to establish and implement procedural safeguards when establishing a plan. This includes providing parental notice, an opportunity for parents to review relevant records, an impartial hearing with an opportunity for participation by the student's parents or guardian, representation by counsel if desired, and a review procedure. Next, we'll go ahead and discuss some resources and services regarding accommodations that are available for students with disabilities. The Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada is a nonprofit law firm dedicated to providing direct legal representation, counsel, advice, and community legal education to those who cannot afford an attorney. They provide advice, training, advocacy, and legal representation in special education to parents, guardians, relatives, and volunteer education advocates. This includes assistance in obtaining a 504 plan. The U.S. Department of Education houses the Office for Civil Rights, which works as an oversight for several civil rights regulations in public education settings. They possess the administrative authority to enforce Section 504. A complaint of discrimination can be filed by anyone who believes that an education institution that receives federal financial assistance, meaning any public elementary, secondary, or higher education setting, has discriminated against someone on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. The person or organization filing the complaint can also be doing so on behalf of another person or group. Furthermore, a recipient of a complaint is prohibited from intimidating, threatening, coercing, or discriminating against any individual for the purpose of interfering with any right or privilege secured by Section 504. On a more local level, the Nevada Equal Rights Commission works within its jurisdiction to investigate complaints of discrimination based on various factors, including disability in public spaces, which includes schools and other educational settings. Any individual who believes their rights have been violated based on a protected class may file a complaint of discrimination on the NERC website. Lastly, the Nevada Parents Encouraging Parents, or Nevada PEP program, is a statewide organization serving families of children and youth with disabilities and behavioral health needs from birth to 26 years and their service providers. They offer resources across three main categories: general information and referral to resources within the organization or to outside providers if needed, individual assistance for families requiring a higher level of support, and transition services to prepare young students for their future across areas such as higher education, life skills, disability rights, money management, and career planning. Nevada PEP also offers support groups for families to find information, support, and resources, as well as provide compassion and understanding of the unique needs of the child and their family. School-specific resources are also available, including disability advocacy, developing parent-teacher partnerships, and developing teacher-student relationships. Last that we're going to talk about today is how to acquire a Section 504 plan in CCSD. Now, since 504 plans are a federal mandate, the process of acquiring one is a fairly uniform one across all school districts in the US, including CCSD. It starts with a referral by a parent or school faculty member of the campus to the 504 coordinator for consideration of eligibility. This coordinator then reviews the referral information, meets with the appropriate school representatives, and provides parents with a parent notice of Section 504 and consent for initial evaluation, as well as a copy of the Section 504 parent-student rights and identification, evaluation, and placement form. Once all required forms have been completed, a Section 504 eligibility meeting is scheduled. Any person knowledgeable to the student and the evaluation, including teachers, faculty members, and parents or guardians, meet and make the determination of eligibility. If it is determined that your child is eligible, then a 504 accommodation plan is developed. Some areas of academics that are generally considered when developing this plan include accommodations needed in order to participate in and benefit from the district's programs, modified grading if appropriate, transition services, creating equal opportunities to participate in athletic programs, how and when the student requires administration of medication, and several other areas. Once this plan has been approved, a plan manager is assigned to the case and works to ensure timely and proper implementation of the plan. The plan will be reviewed and updated at least annually as needed to determine the effectiveness of the accommodations or to reflect any changes in the student's health status that may require modifications to the current plan. A few other important things to know about 504 plans and the process of establishing one. The first one is that parents have the right to review and request copies of their child's educational records as a way to ensure transparency. It also enables parents to be active participants in their child's education. Along the same lines, personal data, evaluations, and records pertaining to a child with a disability must remain confidential and can only be accessed by individuals directly involved in the child's education. Modifications can be made to the plan at any time, and if one is proposed by the parent or the educational team, it is required that a meeting be scheduled to determine if the modification should be made, and in turn, reflected in the student's 504 plan. Parents have the right to participate or not in meetings concerning their child's identification, evaluation, educational placement, and the provision of a free, appropriate public education. Lastly, despite the best intentions, disputes can occur. When they do, it's essential to know the proper chain of command to get the issue resolved, starting with filing a formal complaint with the Nevada Department of Education, all the way up to civil action if needed. These are my resources for this presentation, and thank you all so much for watching.